Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, once again to another edition of Cast with Q. Sponsored by a dissatisfaction with the system. On tonight's program, we got us a surprise guest. I'm sure you're all waiting for our edition of Rag o Mag, where we go over Isom by Eric July. Don't forget about Tales from Magonia. Tunguska 1908's our topic tonight. And obviously, we can't end without Quote of the Day. So without further ado, may I introduce to you, Mr. Q.
Good evening and welcome back to Cast with Q. Welcome back, everybody. It's been a long day, but here we are. We're back at it again. So yeah, let's get right into it, shall we? Obviously, I didn't have time to make a new intro, so those are all the things from last week. But tonight we do have a new Tales from Magonia, and we also do have a new Rag or Mag session. So let's do the Tales from Magonia first. Even though up here I've got kind of a spoiler for our Rag or Mag session. It's going to be the Punisher War Journal. Now, there's actually a reboot. So this is the original Punisher War Journal, a classic. It's so good. This particular issue is written by Mike Baron, who we'll talk about in a little bit. And then we've got the new Punisher War Journal. But we'll talk about all that in due time. First and foremost, we're gonna do our Tales from Magonia session and segment rather. And tonight's segment. Let's get the old screen capture up here. Tonight's segment is going to be the Betty and Barney Hill incident. This is another one of those pretty well documented and pretty famous UFO abduction cases. This is probably one of the first really well-known abduction case. So I know Wikipedia is really not the best source of information all the time, but this being one of the most well-documented cases, it turns out that the information on here is it's pretty efficiently located in one spot. So we're just going to use Wikipedia. But however, I do have a special. Well, you'll see in just a little bit. So let's read a little bit from what this says here. Barney and Betty Hill were an American couple who claimed they were abducted by extraterrestrials in a rural portion of the state of New Hampshire from September 19th to 20th, 1961. The incident came to be called the Hill abduction and the Zeta Reticuli incident because the star map shown to Betty Hill, well, ostensibly shown to Betty Hill, could possibly be the Zeta Reticuli system, according to some researchers. Their story was adapted into a best-selling yada, 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 yada. Okay, so let's get into it, shall we? According to a variety of reports given by the Hills, the alleged UFO sighting happened about 10:30 p.m. September 19th, 1961. The Hills were driving back to Portsmouth from a vacation in Niagara Falls and Montreal. Just south of Lancaster, New Hampshire, Betty claimed to have observed a bright point of light in the sky that moved from below the moon and the planet Jupiter upward to the west of the moon. While Barney navigated U.S. Route 3, Betty reasoned that she was observing a falling star, only it moved upward. Because it moved erratically and grew bigger and brighter, Betty urged Barney to stop the car for a closer look as well as to walk their dog, Delcy. Barney stopped at a scenic picnic area just south of Twin Mountain. I can highlight this stuff for you guys so you can follow along with me. Betty, looking through the binoculars, observed an odd-shaped craft flashing multicolored lights traveling across the face of the moon. Because her sister had several years earlier said that she'd seen a flying saucer, Betty thought it might be what she was observing. Through binoculars, Barney observed what he reasoned was a commercial airliner traveling toward Vermont on its way to Montreal. However, he soon changed his mind because without looking as if it had turned, the craft rapidly descended in his direction. This observation caused Barney to realize, quote, this object that was a plane was not a plane. They quickly returned to the car and drove toward Franconia Notch, a narrow mountainous stretch of the road. The Hills said they continued driving on the isolated road, moving very slowly through Franconia Notch in order to observe the object as it came even closer. At one point, the object passed above a restaurant and a signal tower on top of Cannon Mountain and a signal tower on top of Cannon Mountain and came out near the old man of the mountain. What is that? Betty testified that it was at least 1.5 times the length of a granite cliff profile, which was 40 feet long, and that it seemed to be rotating. The couple watched as the silent, illuminated craft moved erratically and bounced back and forth in the night sky. That's a real interesting detail there. At 1 mile south of Indian Head, they said, the object rapidly descended toward their vehicle, causing Barney to stop in the middle of the highway. The huge, silent craft hovered about 80 to 100 feet above the Hill's 1957 Chevrolet Bel Air and filled the entire field of view in the windshield. It reminded Barney of a huge pancake. Carrying his pistol in his pocket, he stepped away from the vehicle and moved closer to the object. Using the binoculars, Barney claimed to have seen 8 to 11 humanoid figures, who were peering out of the craft's windows, seeming to look at him. In unison, all but one figure moved to what appeared to be a panel on the rear of the hallway that encircled the front portion of the craft. The one remaining figure continued to look at Barney and communicated a message telling him to, quote, stay where you are and keep looking, end quote. Barney had a recollection of observing the humanoid forms wearing glossy black uniforms and black caps, which would then also imply that the portholes they're looking out through would have been clear. But anyway, red lights on what appeared to be bat wing fins appeared to telescope out of the sides of the craft, and a long structure descended from the bottom of the craft. The silent craft approached to what Barney estimated was within 50 to 80 feet overhead and 300 feet away from him. On October 21st, 1961, Barney reported to National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena investigator Walter Webb that the beings were somehow not human. Barney tore the binoculars away from his eyes and ran back to his car. In a near hysterical state, he told Betty, they're going to capture us. He saw the object again shift its location to directly above the vehicle. He drove away as fast as he could, telling Betty to look for the object. She rolled down the window and looked up. Almost immediately, the Hills heard a rhythmic series of beeping or buzzing sounds, which they said seemed to bounce off the trunk of their vehicle. The car vibrated, and a tingling sensation passed through the Hills' bodies. The Hills said that they experienced an onset of an altered state of consciousness that left their minds dulled. A second series of beeping or buzzing sounds returned the couple to full consciousness. They found that they had traveled nearly 35 miles south, but had only vague, spotty memories of that section of the road. They recalled making a sudden, sharp, unplanned turn, encountering a roadblock, and observing a fiery orb in the road. So already this is obviously a pretty interesting story. This is one of those first UFO stories, so the details here, while certain people claim were based on TV shows that the Hills had seen in weeks previous to this incident, they were some of the first times that these details, such as the rotation, especially the fiery orb, is actually a very interesting detail to me, because obviously we've already kind of mentioned the Foo Fighters, the fiery orbs that were seen during World War II by both German and Allied pilots, and also, which is also what the band is named after. So I find that rather interesting that they, so during the moment in which they felt like they had altered state of consciousness, that is ostensibly, according to them, that period of time where the 35 minutes or so where they were abducted by the aliens and the tests were run on them and yada, yada, yada. Which would then make the fiery orb kind of an indicator that the aliens or whatever they were had sent some sort of reconnaissance craft to observe them afterwards and see how everything had worked out. So anyway, let's keep going, shall we? We'll skip ahead a little bit. Let's talk about the hypnosis sessions. So there was a doctor that they went to. Barney went to a psychologist, and he asked the psychologist if it would be wise to do hypnosis sessions to see if there was some memories they could glean from the missing time that they'd experienced. And he said, yeah, go ahead and do it with this fellow Dr. Simon. So it says, Simon began hypnotizing the Hills on January 4th, 1964. He hypnotized Betty and Barney several times each, and the sessions lasted until June 6th, 1964. Simon conducted the sessions on Barney and Betty separately, so they could not overhear one another's recollections. That's good, but at the same time, it had been 3 years since this incident had supposedly happened, so technically speaking, if they'd wanted to, get their story straight, they'd had plenty of time to do it. And I don't know how well this hypnosis stuff works. Do I believe it? Let me put it like this. I've never experienced hypnosis in my real life that has convinced me that it really works. But, just because I haven't experienced it doesn't mean it's not real. Which is going to be a recurring theme on this show, ladies and gentlemen. So anyway, let's continue here, shall we? Simon hypnotized Barney first. Well, naturally. His recall of witnessing non-human figures was quite emotional, punctuated with expressions of fear, emotional outbursts, and incredulity. What a great word. Barney said that due to his fear, he kept his eyes closed for much of the abduction and physical examination. Based on these earlier responses, Simon told Barney that he would not remember the hypnosis sessions until he was certain he could remember them without being further traumatized. Sure. Under hypnosis, as was consistent with his conscious recall, Barney reported that the binocular strap had broken when he ran from the UFO back to his car. He recalled driving the car away from the UFO, but that afterwards he felt irresistibly compelled to pull off the road and drive into the woods. He eventually sighted 6 men standing in the dirt road. The car stalled and the 3 men approached the car. They told Barney not to fear them. He was still anxious, however, and he reported that the leader told Barney to close his eyes. While hypnotized, Barney said, "I felt like the eyes had pushed into my eyes." Barney described the beings as generally similar to Betty's hypnotic, in parentheses, not dream, recollection. The beings often stared into his eyes, said Barney, with a terrifying, mesmerizing effect. Under hypnosis, Barney said things like, "Oh, those eyes, they're there in my brain," from his first hypnosis session, and "I was told to close my eyes because I saw 2 eyes coming close to mine, and I felt like the eyes had pushed into my eyes," from his second hypnosis session, and all I see are these eyes. I'm not even afraid that they're not connected to a body. They're just there. They're just up close to me, pressing against my eyes." Interesting. Barney related that he and Betty were taken onto the disc-shaped craft, where they were separated. He was escorted to a room by 3 of the men and told to lie on a small rectangular exam table. Barney's narrative of the exam was fragmented. He continued to keep his eyes closed for most of the exam. A cup-like device was placed over his genitals. He did not experience an orgasm, though Barney thought that a sperm sample had been taken. The men scraped his skin and peered in his ears and mouth. A tube or cylinder was inserted into his anus and quickly removed. Someone felt his spine and seemed to be counting his vertebrae. While Betty reported a conversation with the leader in English, Barney said that he heard them speaking in a mumbling language he did not understand. Betty also mentioned this detail. The few times they communicated with him, Barney said it seemed to be thought transference at the time. He was unfamiliar with the word telepathy. Both Betty and Barney stated that they hadn't observed the beings' mouths moving when they communicated in English with them. He recalled being escorted from the ship and taken to his car. In a daze, he watched the ship leave. Barney remembered a light appearing on the road, and he said, "Oh no, not again." He recalled Betty's speculation that the light might have been the moon, though the moon had set several hours earlier. He also stated that he attempted to produce the code-like buzzing sounds, which seemed to strike the car's trunk a second time by driving from side to side and stopping and starting the vehicle. His attempt was unsuccessful. And let's read Betty's sessions real quick, shall we? Under hypnosis, Betty's account was similar to her 5 dreams about the UFO abduction, with some notable differences, mainly pertaining to her capture and release. Also, the technology on the craft was different. The short men differed significantly in physical appearance, and sequential order of the abduction differed. Barney's and Betty's memories and hypnotic regression were, however, consistent with one another. So, they've got this star map. She said they showed her this star map, and she remembered certain points on it, but not all of the stars. Naturally, you can't expect that. And she made a drawing of it, and people have said that this is the Zeta Reticuli constellation. I don't know, man. I don't know. I will say, so let's scroll down to here. This is an interesting thing I wanted to talk about. In his 1990 article, Entirely Unpredisposed, Martman Kottmeyer suggested that Barney's memories revealed under hypnosis might have been influenced by an episode of the science fiction television show The Outer Limits, titled The Bellaro Shield, which was broadcast about 2 weeks before Barney's first hypnotic session. The episode featured an extraterrestrial with eyes who says, "In all the universes, in all the unities beyond the universes, all who have eyes that speak." Let's try it again.
In all the universes, in all the unities beyond the universes, all who have eyes that speak.
The report from the regression featured a scenario that was in some respects similar to the television show. In part, Kottmeyer wrote, "Wraparound eyes are an extreme rarity in science fiction films. I know of only one instance." Obviously, he's talking about that episode. Could it be chance? Consider this. Barney first described and drew the wraparound eyes during the hypnosis session dated the 2nd of February, 1964. The Bellaro Shield was first broadcast on the 10th of February, 1964. Only 12 days separate the two instances. If the identification is admitted, the commonness of wraparound eyes in the abduction literature falls to cultural forces. I don't know about that. And to be brutally honest with you, they say, look at these two pictures. Look at these two. Look how similar they are to one another. And I got to be honest with you, they don't look similar, really, to each other. I mean, this guy's got a pretty regular-sized, generally speaking, regular-shaped human head. His mouth is the more interesting part of it, and the wraparound eyes are not wraparound eyes. Those are like wraparound brows. But that's not what this person drew over here, what Barney Hill, his hypnosis sketch of the gray. No, it's not at all. I mean, look, it doesn't even look remotely similar, and the shape of the head looks completely different, too. The shape of the head looks much more ovular, much more round in Barney's picture than it does in that other picture. However, something that does look quite like Barney's picture is this drawing of an entity known as Lamb that Aleister Crowley, a magical worker, as it were, pretty much a Satanist through and through. Oh man, I know people will be angry at me for saying things about him that are negative, but I don't like Aleister Crowley all that much. But anyway, Aleister Crowley, during his Alamantra workings, essentially stated that he summoned and spoke to this being called Lamb, and this is the sketch that he made of that being. And I find it rather curious. I find it rather curious indeed that for the very early phases of of ufology and of people thinking about and talking about aliens, they were perceived generally as what they call the Space Brothers, people who look just like you and I, human-looking people, and that those were the denizens of the occupants of these craft, as it were. And then this fellow Aleister Crowley conducts this satanic ritual, and he meets this being called Lamb, who looks like this, and suddenly we start hearing about grays, which I find absolutely fascinating. And this is something that kind of ties it back into Tales from Magonia. Obviously, that title for this segment is based on Passport to Magonia, the book by Jacques Vallée, which essentially tries to get the reader to consider the concept that the stimuli present in religious, theological, that kind of and magical phenomena, is the stimuli there are the same ones present in the ufology phenomena, which will lead one to the truth, I suppose. It makes it a lot easier. So yeah, I find that very curious indeed. Very curious. Here's a cool thing, though. Let's bring this up, shall we? Here's a cool thing. I went to the comic book store today, and while I happened to be there, I saw this Blue Book, which is a new comic book by Dark Horse Comic Books. So, obviously, we've talked about Operation Blue Book that was the first one, Roswell. So this is, I assume, going to just be a comic book about stories from Operation Blue Book, which I found fascinating. And honestly, the art's pretty cool so far. So let's go through it here. I was going through it. I brought it back home, and I was like, okay, so I can talk about this after the Betty and Barney Hill thing, and you know, kind of, it'll be cool to tie this in, like a comic book about UFOs. But lo and behold, this story's about Betty and Barney Hill. It's literally their story. Here's some, here we go. Just some shots of it. I don't know how much exactly I'm allowed to show. But here's the UFO itself, like a pancake with windows all around it. There it is. It kind of shows you the size of it. There it is standing above him. This is essentially the whole story of Betty and Barney Hill's incident. They even got Delcy the dog there. I like this picture a lot. These are some of my favorite pictures. The one on the right there, with him standing right there and the car, and then you can see the size of the UFO and the fact that it's like tilted like that, just sitting there. Very rad indeed. Here are those telescoping bat wings they were talking about, and he's like, "Oh no, not telescoping bat wings." Yeah. And then he looks up close into the portholes and sees the aliens there. And this is that page where they like look at him and try to hypnotize him. And this is actually the only page in the book where they have a color other than black and blue and white technically. They got the red there, which actually I think is really cool. It adds a lot. It makes you feel the anxiety. Makes you feel his anxiety that he's got there. So I'm gonna bring this page up while I'm gonna bring that page up while I talk about that comic, because I wrote a little bit about that comic. All right, little big. Sorry, I don't know how to generate them small. It's okay. We gotta get it exact here. We gotta get it exactly in the middle here. There it is. All right. Okay, so here we are. Let me go to my little notes here. So essentially for this comic book here, Blue Book, it's actually, the material's rather nice. This is some real cover material as opposed to this, which is made out of like quite possibly the shittiest paper I've ever touched. Thank you, Marvel. This is made out of some good material here. Even the pages on the inside here. They're okay. Yeah, they're okay. It's the cover really that's most important to me. But it's okay to say. All right. It's simply a retelling of the Betty and Barney Hill event. It's actually quite fortuitous that I picked it up today. I was afraid. Is that okay? Okay. So I was afraid at first, in the beginning. They were commenting about the Hill's social work and all that, and I was afraid that it was going to lead into like wokeism. Yeah. But fortunately, nothing of that sort happened. In fact, I appreciated the panel. There was a panel at the diner in the very beginning where you can see the waitress's disapproving look of the Hills, which, implies what was going on at the time between interracial marriages. She could have said something cringy and on the nose, but instead the comic just told you all you needed to know with a single panel and a look. And I was like, okay, fair enough. The dialogue is a little annoying, but at the same time, I'm fairly certain that that's pretty much exactly what they were saying in real life, or close to it as possible. We could see that the comic actually pretty accurately represents the incident. Even the part at the end, the last page, I wrote down here. However, the part at the end where he says they're going to capture us is a little weird. I felt like it was acceptable because they were leading into the next comic book. But at the same time, and here it is right here. Hold on. They're going to capture us. I was like, a little weird, but that's actually literally what he said, or what he said in real life. So it's like, okay, actually they like pretty much just followed it beat by beat, which is like, it was very cool. My favorite part is where the aliens begin hypnotizing him. This right here. It keeps focusing on their eyes, and that goes along perfectly with how Barney described in his hypnosis sessions that the eyes were pressing on his. It also is the only part of the book where there's color other than black and blue. The red really pops and gives you that sense of anxiety. So yeah, that's pretty much it for our Tales from Magonia. This was a really cool, what a fortuitous day this was, just to find this. And this actually just happened to be the story I was going to talk about today. So, pretty rad. So let's go back here. Whoops. Okay. I wonder why my background isn't, there we go. Has it not been going? It's not been going this whole time. Has it had to restart it? Interesting. So, all right. Let's get into it, shall we? What are we going to bring up? We're going to bring up this. Punisher War Journal. God, I keep messing with the camera. I think we're going to pull up a picture of... We'll pull up that, the new Punisher War Journal. That way you guys can be looking at that while we talk about it. Yeah. Whoa. Sorry. Okay. Get that in there. Okay, Punisher War Journal. Here we go. So, yeah. I knew that this was going to come out here. I heard that they were rebooting Punisher War Journal, and I'd read a good portion of the original stuff. Not all of it. I'm not going to say all of it. But I've got like 40 issues back there. Literally just in one stack. Like that's that middle stack you see right there. That's all Punisher War Journal. Because I love Punisher War Journal. It's amazing. And Jim Lee draws a lot of it too. It's just so I knew that they were going to reboot it. And I've also known that, that they were going to that they've changed Punisher. He's now essentially Punisher now is like not a threat. He's like not a dangerous guy. He's not a badass motherfucker. He's just a guy who fights crime, and he makes sure not to use guns, uses the swords because that's more PC, and he's always just like this sullen sad sack instead of like the Punisher. Yes, he's upset that his family's dead, but at this point he's just a focused man. He's just focused on killing criminals. And so, like, anyway, let me get into it. We've already talked a little bit on a different podcast about how Marvel has essentially neutered the Punisher. They've changed his iconic logo to this ridiculous demon head or whatever. They say in his main series he doesn't really use guns anymore, and the alternate edition of this cover actually had him holding katanas and throwing stars and the like. And it's true. The alternate cover is like, the alternate cover looks kind of like Berserker. One of the covers of Berserker, where he's got like swords and things. And so it's like, where are the guns? So then you open up the book. Okay. I don't even know. Should I bring this picture up? Yeah, let me bring this picture up. I should have already had all this loaded. It's been a rough day, okay? And it's going to get rougher here when you guys see what I'm bringing up here. So the first thing that we're greeted by when we open up this really poor quality paper is this here. It's Jeff comic book. And honestly, this is the thing that caused me to quit. Like, I'd already kind of resolved to not pay Marvel any more money for new things. I do buy the Omnibuy. I'll admit that. But it's also the old comics that I love. Which I think kind of, hopefully to them, makes a statement of where the money's going. Like, I will buy the old stuff. I'm not interested in all this new garbage. Not because it's new. I love new, good stuff. It's just that it's... Well, you'll see. So you open up the book and you're instantly greeted with one of the most laughable things I've seen in a Marvel comic book, an advertisement for It's Jeff, which it's apparently been demanded by us, the readers. We demanded this. This is a perfect example of the complete unadulterated dog shit that Marvel pumps out now. An entire comic book dedicated to a fucking pet. Not to mention the embarrassing artwork. It looks like something straight out of a 7th grader's history notebook. They just got bored and they're just like, I'm going to draw my favorite characters. And this is what it looks like. Naturally, it's written by Kelly Thompson, who inexplicably continues to get work at Marvel, even though everything she touches she creates into bland, homogenous sludge. And it usually ends up getting canceled or she gets moved to a different book after she's already run the current one into the ground. See Deadpool. Anyway... That next we get the intro page, which explains to us the previous events of the Punisher's journey so far. It's essentially like explains the new Punisher deal, why he's all about swords and stuff now, and what his new thing is. Let's see here. After retired Marine Frank Castle's wife and children were killed by a stray gunfire. Stray gunfire, it says in here. Stray gunfire. Huh. During a shootout in Central Park, he began a one-man vigilante war on crime. Armed with a vast arsenal and a grim determination, he became the Punisher. And this is the Punisher War Journal, base. The cult of the assassins known as the Hand. The evil cult of the assassins, a magical evil cult known as the Assassins, known as the Hand, made Frank Castle an offer he couldn't refuse. Become their high slayer in exchange for the resurrection of his long-dead wife, Maria. Frank is just one in a long line of fabled Fists of the Beast. But many years ago, Frank was just trying to be a family man, doing what he could to keep his destiny at bay. His destiny at bay. Look at this shit. His destiny. It takes all agency out of him. It wasn't his destiny. It was something that happened to him. His family was killed. And so then he chose to dedicate his life to destroying crime. Now it's this like fabled magical destiny bullshit. And not to mention, there's no universe where the Punisher would do anything other than try to completely eradicate the Hand. Like, he would not join with them and become their assassin. That's not the point of his character. Like, that's not what his... Okay. So, okay. Already we're not off on a good foot. As the Punisher, he has no reason to be the Punisher when his family's still alive. Like, well, let's get going with in the actual book here. In the actual book here, this is before he became the Punisher. This is before his family was killed, apparently. But it's not a good foot to start off on, because that means he's got no reason to act like the Punisher, to attack people, to kill criminals, because his family's still alive. This presents a problem for the writer. Torin Gronbeck is his name. So he resolves this by turning Frank from a war vet who loves his family into a severely shell-shocked vet, which isn't a problem, but who ignores and is indifferent to his family. That's the problem. He just can't leave the war behind. You know what it is? Where's home is what they keep saying in this. His wife keeps asking him, where's home? And he's supposed to answer here, but deep down in his heart, he wants to say, back down range, you know? Honestly, it's a tired trope. It's a tired trope to see with the Punisher. Like, I don't care. Like, I care that his family got killed, and that's why he's the Punisher. But now I just want to see the Punisher. I don't want to see him before he was the Punisher. That's like reading Peter Parker's like sophomore and junior year of high school. You know, before he became Spider-Man, where he was just a nerd and he just ate shit the whole time. It's like, one day he's going to be Spider-Man, but for right now, we're going to watch him be the character he was before when he didn't have any of the character issues. Okay, whatever. Okay, the worst part is the character assassination of Frank Castle, though, from turning him into a loving father and a husband into a disconnected, sullen partner, as the psychologist puts it, as the therapist puts it. Your partner. Husband is the word because he's a man married to a woman in marriage. They're man and wife. Husband, not partner. I hate that term, partner. Furthermore, the whole point is the death of Castle's family at the hands of mobsters is what causes him to become the Punisher. To say that he's always been this way, that he's always constantly wanting to kill people, cheapens the character and makes him kind of look like a bastard. But I suppose that's kind of the point, huh? Marvel. Meanwhile, in Mike Barron's book, the most interesting part of this new war journal is the reference to Ma, what's her name, from that and her Russian hitman from that one series. I forgot what the name of it was. It was a fun run. It was like 10, 12 issues long, and he fights that Russian guy. But like they like reference that. But them showing that only makes me want to just read that book instead of this one. The most interesting art in the book happens when Castle decides to investigate the house that he happened to hear a scream from. Pretty convenient, right? It's some cool action, long overdue. But Punisher doesn't use guns at all. It just kind of feels a little empty. He doesn't even like kill anybody. Does he kill the scientist? He shoves the needle in his eye. That doesn't kill him, though, I don't think. No, he does. No, yeah. Yeah. He kills him with the wooden beam. I mean, at least I presume he's dead. Oh, he's dead. Yeah, he's dead. He lights the whole thing on fire. But it's like, that still doesn't make any sense. Like, the cops are going to figure out one way or another that it was Frank Castle, the dude who literally lives down the street. He literally lives down the street from this house, where he just happens to find the mob engaged in silencing people who would speak out against them by cutting off their hands and torturing them in a basement. So how's that going to work? The mob takes these people who are going to talk against them, they threaten them and torture them and cut off body parts of them and then release them back out and say, you better not talk. And then you get home and your husband's like, what happened to your hand? And where have you been for the past 2 weeks? And why are you all bloody and bruised and beat up? And you're just like, nothing. Everything's fine. Like, how exactly is that going to work? Anyway, he stumbles upon that. He literally looks through a window into the basement and like the window is open. The window is open and he can see this mob guy torturing these people. The sheer convenience of this story, things just like happening to help the story move along, it's ridiculous. Even more conveniently, he was like walking his dog before this, and he like ties him up to a tree, pretty far away, I would say, from the house. But even more conveniently, one of the bullets fired by one of the thugs magically finds Castle's dog, and it kills the dog, and it provides some like emotional weight at the end of the story where he's got to bury the dog in his backyard, and he's like, his wife walks out and she just looks at him disappointedly, and he's like, I know, she wants to ask me where's home, But she doesn't. She just walks back inside. And it ends sadly. And it's like... None of this... On the complete and utter contrary, we have... Get that out of here. What am I doing? What have I done? Get out of here. Where's that picture? Okay. There it is. Sorry. My bad. On the complete contrary, we have the Punisher War Journal. I don't know what year this is. This is 1990. 1990 on the dot. And this is oh my gosh, ladies and gentlemen. This OG Punisher War Journal is so good. Well, let me show some of the pictures first, I guess. That way you guys have an idea of what the last one looks like and what this one looks like. So let's go close that, do this, and go here. Okay. So this is the new one. It says it's parental advisory down here, but I don't know why it says that, because the blood is all black for the most part. There's really nothing all that violent that happens, and there's no language. Yuck. Here's that stupid Jeff. I mean, look at how bad this art is. This is expected to be professional art. You're gonna sell this to somebody as a Marvel comic book, and it's about a talking like shark, like a baby shark. So here's a couple pages of Frank Castle and his wife in marriage counseling. This is like riveting stuff, folks. The kind of thing I'm always looking forward to when I open up a comic book about a superhero, or more appropriately, a lethal vigilante. This is what I want to see. Looks like this one's sideways. Let's try to... There we go. More mundane nonsense. Look, she's mad at him. Look at this. I'd forgotten. So it's Halloween time, and she's like, honey, where's your costume? Maria wasn't angry, but she was hurt. That's your what? I'm a bank robber. Tried to play it off. Didn't work. Oh my gosh. So she's mad at him. She's upset with him because he just can't get it through his thick skull. This is all the kind of... This is what I want to see. This is really, really what I want to see. Here's that one interesting page, though, where they mentioned Mom. What's her name? I keep forgetting what her name is. And then her Russian hitman. Good stuff. Good stuff. It was cool. And then here we get to some real action here. Don't understand why he's shoving him through glass and it says clang. It should say like crash or krish or clash or ksh or ksh, but it says clang. And then he makes a little... The Punisher makes a little snide little quip there. Sorry, Skippy. Sorry, Skippy? And this is where I think the only guy he actually really kills shoves that needle into his eye, which he well deserves. And this woman with no hand, who is totally now not going to talk. She's not going to talk about the mafia. Yeah, he kills this guy with a wooden beam. And then he literally burns the place down, which is the most Punisher thing that he does. But it's like how the cops are gonna find out it was him. You live right down the street. You literally live a couple blocks down the street. They're gonna find out it was you. Meanwhile, we've got this one. Ooh, baby, 1990, The Punisher War Journal, written by Mike Barron, pencilers Neil Hansen, inker Mark Texeira. Texeira. And yeah, the we got Tom DeFalco on it too. That's cool. Look at this awesome these old advertisements.
Become the ultimate warrior in the ultimate war. Lion sword.
No, it's not what it says.
Iron sword.
That's what it says. Sorry. So in this one, it has to like intro you to everything. Let me tell you about the story. Let me give you some exposition right away. But over here, it just jumps right into the action. We get this guy upset that the savings and loan company has taken all his money, so he blows the teller away. Let's we'll scroll through these for a minute here. Put that one the right way. I put them the right way earlier, but they all got messed up, looks like. So yeah, let me stay right there. This one, the Punisher War Journal, it's written by Mike Baron, who is also the writer of the upcoming Private American. And because Mike Baron's a member of Comicsgate, Private American has essentially been shadow banned by Indiegogo. So let's look at Private American for a minute here, shall we? Let's get rid of you. I don't like your face. The Private American, written by Mike Baron, and it's drawn by comic book artist Richard Bonk. That's bonkers, to be brutally honest with you. Well, let's watch the trailer, shall we? Let's see if will it do it for us? Yeah! Let's turn it down a little
America's southern border has become a war zone. Human traffickers, drug smugglers, and terrorists flow across the Rio Grande with impunity, secure in the knowledge that no one will stop them. A distant federal government lectures Americans on their privilege while punishing overworked Border Patrol agents who were helpless to stem the tidal wave of invaders and determined migrants. Second-generation Cuban-American Marcos Zamora is a military vet, more patriotic than most Americans. No longer able to ignore the chaos at his doorstep, he acts. Joined by his best friend Gus, they hit the border every night, saving lives while stopping violent drug cartels and other opportunists. The government reacts with fury at Marcos' attempts to preserve American sovereignty, deploying the full might of their enforcement agencies. But Marcos understands that the only thing the rich and powerful fear is bad publicity, and he records every encounter. Whoever he is, this Private American must be stopped. Illustrated by Richard Bonk and written by Eisner winner Mike Baron, Private American is his version of Captain America, and maybe a little Punisher, taking part in this ongoing, violent, and very real battle of good versus evil in the war for American sovereignty. Grab your copy at theprivateamerican.com.
Yeah.
We have a secure border, and that is a priority for our administration.
Wow. I'd not heard that Kamala Harris quote at the end. That's hilarious. So yeah, Private American. This comic book is one that I would say this it's Wraith of God and then this that I'm most excited for. That are coming out of Comicsgate. This one, look at his costume. His costume's amazing. The design I think is great. The yellow snake on the front, that is fantastic. It's gonna be. I think this is. Now, obviously, it's been shadow banned. Look at those different covers. Why didn't I get B? Oh my god! Wow, I didn't see that. Now I want that. And the art is. Look at this art. It's great, fantastic. I especially love that the lines all pointing down. Oh man, that's so good. You see where all the action is moving. That's how you look at this shit. This is so good. Oh, very excited. That is so cool. That is so cool. So anyway, Mike Baron is writing this, and he used to be a Punisher writer. So, I know this is going to be really good because I've read a lot of his Punisher stuff. But anyway, yeah, that's Private American. Support that because you're going to want to. It's going to be a great book. I can tell you, it's going to be great. And my word is law, as all people know. Anyway, the story is a classic example. This Punisher War Journal is a classic example of a satisfying monthly story. Punisher goes down to the Texas Panhandle to investigate the shady collapse of the savings and loan company, and he realizes that several people have essentially been screwed out of money by the fat cat elites. Sound familiar? We're going to talk a little bit more about that when I'm going to show a page. Anyway, note how Punisher... What did I write there? Okay. Punisher essentially follows this guy, Reese Kelleher, and uncovers the evidence of some dirty deeds done dirt cheap. Well, maybe they're not dirt cheap, but they're dirty deeds nonetheless. They're moving Mexican black tar heroin, also known as Skag, over the border. This is enough for the Punisher to decide to, punish Kelleher. So the feds are on to Kelleher, and he goes back to his mansion, and he starts trying to burn the documents. The Punisher arrives just in time to infiltrate the house and find Kelleher. Some awesome action. I'll show you those in a little bit again, but it's obviously much better than anything they showed in the new War Journal. The art in those pages, the action pages, I particularly love, especially the color design. Punisher does confront Kelleher. Kelleher throws a grenade at him, and Punisher becomes incapacitated by a sofa. But at that point, just in the nick of time, Kelleher's disgruntled Hispanic mistress Carlotta knocks him upside the head with a literal frying pan. And then it looks like she proceeds to kill him with it because it's done behind the sofa. Like, she just keeps wonking him with it. And but the thing is, technically it's done behind the sofa. You don't see the dead body, so by comic book rules, he could technically come back. Now, how funny would that be if that guy, Reese Kelleher, in Punisher War Journal 2023 number 2, Reese Kelleher shows up and he's like a cyborg Reese Kelleher. I'd actually probably buy that book and I'd read it again, and it might be enjoyable. But so yeah, I'll show those pictures in a little bit. Just a good old fashioned story. Things that they like, the art, the things they introduce in the beginning come back to wrap themselves up at the end. The art's done by Neil Henson, and it's a pure pleasure. I'm a huge fan of the old-fashioned way of drawing comic books. You guys have been reading that the whole time instead of the picture. Well, that's kind of what happens when you're an idiot. But, yeah, you saw my notes. So what? Now you know I've got notes. Anyway, let's look at we might as well show you guys the pictures again, shall we? So, yeah. Look at this shit. Neil Henson. Okay, so here we go. This part is really cool because he's like, this is where the Punisher starts talking about his stuff. He's like,
Punisher's War Journal. They'll never convict Reese Kelleher. The crime's too complicated. Juries quickly become bored with long paper trails. They lose sight of the crime. The fat cats rip off what the little cats spend their whole lives saving. They pump money into real estate, which they trade back and forth among themselves to inflate prices. Only it didn't work. They got caught with their pants down. Blah, blah. Like I said, a boring crime. The hard part comes down the line. The little people swindled out of their life savings. The family's ruined. My family was wiped out when we accidentally stumbled on a mob rubout. Okay, end of lecture.
See, look at that. Look at that. You see that? Look at that. In literally one box of dialogue, the Punisher told you his whole backstory, and in the rest of the page, he kind of explained to you what he cares about, stopping crime, and his backstory right there in one box of dialogue. I don't want to see his wife and his kids. I just want to watch the Punisher punish criminals. That's why they call him the Punisher. But anyway, this is a great Mike Baron story though here, because you can see the Punisher doesn't just go after, gangbangers and street criminals. He'll go after these fat cats that take advantage of the system, take advantage of the financial system that is ridiculously set up to begin with. That's not an anti-capitalist statement. It's whatever. We'll continue. We'll move on from that. And then also look at the art on this page. Goodness gracious. The coloring is fantastic. Like the blue, and then when he lights the dollar bill to light his cigar, which he's smoking a cigar, that's cool. You'd never see that in a modern Punisher comic book. Never. Let's move on here. Look at these advertisements. A Dungeons and Dragons rip-off game, or well, maybe not. No, it looks actually kind of different. Doesn't look like Dungeons and Dragons at all. Interesting. I wonder what that game's about. And then looks like a Nintendo video game. Look at that. Here's when Punisher gets to the mansion. Just some great. Look at that. Blam blam blam. Shaboom. See, that's the sound effect that a shotgun would make. If this was a new comic book, the shotgun would make like a bang, pop. But no, his pistol makes blam, 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 and the shotgun makes chaboom. And look at the lighting. Fantastic. Look at this shit. So good. Then another picture. This is where Kelleher throws a grenade, and he gets all of that one. Look at this picture. The detail on his backpack. Like this. This took some time. This took some effort. That's Kelleher. That's all she wrote. That's all she wrote, he says, because he's actually Southern. And then look at that. Bonk. And then bong, bong, bong. She's like whacking him behind the sofa. And we're like, did he? Look at it. She says, he should have tasted some of my dinner. And Punisher's like, help me out of here. He really should have. I mean, first of all, she made guacamole. She stated that directly. She's like, I made guacamole. I spent all day making this guacamole. You need to taste it. And Kelleher was like, I ain't got time for your ways, woman. I gotta go kill me some people. This is what happens. This is what happens. What is it? Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. Yep. And then she helps him get the sofa off him, and he grabs the notebook containing all of the bank account numbers, which is classic. And then brat. Look at that. I love that. And the motion, too. The motion of it to show you that he just sweeps it over. Great. Fantastic. And then here's the end of the issue. They've got all these... they're letting you know what's all for sale. And then these Stan's soapbox right here, love this shit. You don't see this in modern comic books. Because people wouldn't even be interested in what the editors over at Marvel have to say. I'm not interested in what the editors over at Marvel have to say. Unless they say something like... I stepped down from my position willingly, and I have fired everybody underneath me, and I've sold the company to Eric July or Ethan Van Sciver. If that's what they say, then I'm very interested in that. But other than that, not interested. So yeah, I think that's it, ladies and gentlemen. That is our Ragger Mag. Oh, no. I have to wrap it up. Let's wrap it up then, shall we? The verdict. These two books couldn't be any more different. In one, you have a Punisher who is calm, calculated, intelligent, and focused. In the other, you have a sullen, depressed, reactionary man who's mean to his family. In one, the story kind of happens to Punisher, and the plot progression is rather forced and convenient. In the latter, the plot introduces concepts in the beginning to wrap them up satisfyingly later. All in all, this comic book, the Punisher War Journal base, is not a very good book. And it feels like the soul and the radness of the Punisher has been sucked out to make him inoffensive. The art is just there at best, and the story lacks anything really gripping. Well, there's first for everything. So this is actually the first time I say that this comic book is a rag. And which means... that I'm going to take the staples out here. Let's see. Let's get to the middle page. Is the middle page even worth it? Boring. Boring middle page. So I'm going to take them staples out. And I'm going to use this as paper that my birds can take dumps on. And I don't know if you guys knew this, but at least my species of bird, I don't know if it's different with other birds, but my species of bird, the budgergar, they poop approximately every 15 minutes. Their metabolism is very high. They're always eating, and then they're always pooping. Every 15 minutes. So, it's that's it. I gotta go now. I'm tired. Thanks for coming out, everybody. Everybody who came out. Have a wonderful night. God bless. And we'll see you next time on Cast with Q. That's all, folks.